there's a lot of women, but they're always presenting the men, and they're always too much makeup, and they're always what men want them to look like. So there's this, only in documentary can you see women being really real in themselves. In fiction, you will always have the director's idea of what a woman is. So for me, it's like we must use as many women in documentaries. When I decided to make films, there are films in my mind that I thought, okay, you know what? I want to be a good filmmaker just because I want to make a good film about street harassment in Amman. I was so annoyed by being harassed. And if anything, I felt like I need to learn this because I want to make a film about this, because I can't stand the fact that I almost want to leave the country just because I'm uncomfortable on the streets because of a few. I'm Palestinian who's born in Kuwait, then went through the Kuwait-Iraqi war and left to Jordan for 8 years, then went to Canada for 4, and then been traveling ever since. So Jordan is my second choice for home. My first one, I'm not sure what it is yet. I think that I will make more films in the Middle East. I could be a lot more creative here than anywhere else. In Jordan particularly, maybe. I think that if I didn't make films, I probably would write short stories, children's stories. I would illustrate or make some sort of unique and beautiful, innocent children's stories. All my life, something about my face, something about my voice maybe, because I'm petite, I've always been treated as the innocent one in class, with my friends, my family. I was always the one who couldn't have possibly done the wrong thing. And so in a way, I always wanted to counterpart that, so I've become very rebellious in many different ways. Really, yeah, and just because I didn't want to be the angel. But maybe I am the angel, like, maybe I do have that sort of light that's innocent.
Really strange. I always sort of knew, even before I knew what a director was. I come from my television news background. My father's in television news, and so when I was younger, there were all these it used to be shot on film in those days. So there were all these film canisters around the house, and there were always loads of cameras, and we would always, when we'd play with you know, when we'd hang out with my dad, he would always like film us, or we would film, or you know, or he used to make us these little reportage stories whenever we would go on holiday, and so we were just always around cameras. Actually, it was my mum who, I mean, all the films that people have, you know, watch later on in their lives, I was taken to, like, you know, Rules of the Game when we were aged 11, and Chinese cinema, and, you know, my mother sort of really educated me in that respect, and so I've always been around really good films. So, although that didn't influence my first movie, which is all about a woman who cheated on her husband and killed him. I can see where I come from both ends, you know, and I don't necessarily think it's the ultimate way to live, you know. So it creates a lot of humour in my work, you know. These moments that I want to recreate, mainly through my personal experience, stuff that I want to capture, and then I write them all down, and I write like 500 pages of stuff, scenes, and then I look at it and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? You know, and I go through and I try and make I try and mould it so that all the stuff I really want is in there. And then I mould it down, and I just keep on sculpting it, and somehow it comes out. And I think that obviously the more scripts I write, I'm going to have a really good system, hopefully one day. But right now it's really painful, long sort of scenes, images. Like I see an image, and I'll photocopy it, and I'll put it down, and I'm like, okay, this is what I want. But I want to make my reality, which I think is, when you ask me, well, how my cinema is different, I really focus on my reality and what I know. I think it's important to make films about what you know, because nobody else is making them, and it's just about having that sense, because being a director is about showing the world showing people your story through your eyes. So really it's about showing people, this first film, and as the second, it's showing people this world that I come from that no one's ever seen before in film, that is completely ridiculous, really funny, very sad, this sort of political heritage mixed with ridiculous lifestyle, all this sort of stuff. That's really what I want to deal with. The first one I ever did was, at film school. That dealt more with the issues of me. I remember my granny's Bosnian, and I remember being at school in England, aged 15, and my grandmother gone missing because we couldn't find her because the Croats had bombed Mostar, and it was all, and her house had been bombed, and we couldn't find her. And I was sitting in class, and this English girl who always kind of had it in for me said to me, Dana, that there are atrocities on both sides, and this is the time of the camps and all the stuff, where really, like, ultimately, okay, you know, I'm not even going to go into it, it's pretty, you know, obvious what I'm saying. So, and I just remember looking at her, and then we had this big, like, you know, face-off in the class, and like she stormed out, and no one knew what to do. So I did my first film at school was about that, and I think it's something still that really gets me, because really that's just, that little incident really shows how I grew up in England. You're 5 years old, and someone's Zionist dad is telling you, you say, where are you from? My mum is Palestinian. Oh, that doesn't exist. So then you go, Mum, what? This man said this, and you know, your mother's like, ah. So you grow up with this sort of crazy conflict just when you're 5 years old and you're living in Holland Park in London. It's just sort of this kind of weird sort of trickle down effect.
I looked at him. He looked at me. Our eyes met in one point. I had to say hello, and he said hello. So I met him, and we had a drink together.
This is the guy who selects, you know, the right characters for
the
movie. I don't know what
this was. Sam Woolsey. This was Sam Woolsey.
Sam Woolsey. That's what the casting is. My biggest piece was my thesis film, which was The Seventh Dog, which you know about, and which really dealt with my experience living in New York post 9/11